A very good morning and welcome to the session titled Advancing Humanity Through Robotics. My name is Nzinga Kunta and it's a great pleasure to be facilitating the session that looks at the advancement of robotics technologies and what it could mean for our futures in health, economics and so much more. On our panel today, Haoyuan, who's the Chairman and CEO of Alluxio, and Dr. Sebastian Weidt, who's the co-founder and CEO of Universal Quantum. Sebastian, perhaps I'll start with you. Can you briefly explain what quantum computing is?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, and thanks for having me. So, I'm not a robotics expert, but I'll tell you a little bit about quantum computing and maybe what this can
Sebastian?
do for robotics to start things off lightly, basically. So, quantum computing is a new computing technologies that some of you may have heard of before. It's basically a computer that uses the laws of quantum mechanics. So, when we talk about quantum, we're talking about the very small. And on that sort of very small scale, some very strange things can happen. So for example, something can be in two places at the same time. Now what quantum computers do is they make use of these quantum effects to process information much, much faster than any conventional supercomputer can do. With that sort of computational capability, what we get is completely new applications that we can think about. So for example, quantum computers are thought to completely revolutionize drug discovery, climate change, material science, applications into financial services, and so on. So it's an enabling technology that nowadays, because of its significant impact to the economy, for example, major governments are also starting to get involved. We, for example, recently got a 70 million contract to build a quantum computer for a particular government that I can't mention here today. So this is really something that governments see as a technology that they need to have within their borders, so to speak, because you cannot rely on, certain countries giving you access to these sort of technologies in the future. So it's absolutely critical to have that capability in-house, so to speak, and this is kind of what we're seeing at the moment. Governments putting significant money on the table to enable that development to happen in their country.
All right, Haoyuan, talk to us about robotics and what problem Alluxio is solving and the technical innovations that come with that.
Yeah, so at Alluxio, we're betting on the data trend. We believe we're in this data revolution, and robotics is part of data revolution as well. You leverage data and the machine to produce value for people. And we're in the middle of this revolution. We believe, to the peak of this will produce more impact. This revolution will produce more impact to the society than what internet or mobile has produced to the world. Mm-hmm. That's the fundamental trend. And in that trend, you will see for all different areas of our society, essentially these organizations like companies, governments, essentially, etc., they start to use data to make decisions for these organizations. Every time you do a search in the search engine, you go to a website on social media, it's all produced, all the results, whatever you see is based on the data and the algorithm, the application on top of the data. So that's the future. So in that future, essentially, you can divide that into three areas. One is the people. Essentially, that's the end user, right, being impacted. One is the application and data. One is the infrastructure. So at Alluxio, essentially, we're doing the infrastructure piece. We're trying to build the most advanced and modern infrastructure to enable all these organizations to easily leverage the data to produce value to them for the society. That's what we do. You can think of, hopefully in 10 years, 20 years, people can leverage data applications like how they are leveraging email or a laptop or cell phone today. Mm-hmm. That's the future. Mm-hmm. And we're building the most fundamental infrastructure, software infrastructure for that.
Okay. Sebastian, how then does quantum computing assist with robotics?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, so quantum computing is an enabling technology, and I think one of the application areas we think about a lot is machine learning, AI, mm-hmm. and it's already understood that quantum computers will be able to move that field along significantly. So if you, for example, think about optimization problems, understanding very complicated data sets, finding patterns within those, analyzing huge amounts of sensory data, and so on. I mean, the list really goes on. Quantum computers should be able to significantly help with the analysis of that sort of data. So that's one of the sort of many areas I think quantum computing can really help in the robotics sector, but also in a whole range of other sectors. Mm-hmm. So it's a true enabling technology, and I think this is why we're seeing so much interest in that sector, and why it is so important that you have that sort of sovereign capability.
Yeah. Haoyuan, when you speak about this revolution that's coming when it comes to data and how it's used and how it's fundamentally going to change the way people interact with it, how would you say that ties in with the evolution of robotics since you founded Alluxio in around 2015?
Yeah, definitely. So essentially, what does infrastructure do? In the end of the day, any infrastructure enable related areas to be much more efficient, much more effective. So part of robotics is also to do a lot of research, R&D, development, iterate on whatever you build, right? A lot of that depends on, rely on data. And when you have a good data infrastructure, like many of our users, and you will see that the iteration, the speed of innovation will be accelerated in a significant way. So we'll see the end-to-end, like human efficiency to do this type of research, or all the data applications can be improved like between 2 times to 4 times what we have seen typically. That really means previously for the things, for a task you're trying to do, previously say it took a year, now you only need to take 3 months to 6 months. Okay. That's essentially, if you put a larger scale, longer scale, means like 40 years became 10 to 20 years. And hopefully, like without a data technology like what we have, so this robotics advancement in 2060, we'll be able to see this in 2030. So that's fundamentally how we're contributing in the robotics field.
Powerful. Sebastian, how do you see quantum computing evolving?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think the good thing about quantum computing is that these machines do really work. You can access them today. I think that's the really positive news. The sort of downside at the moment is that these machines don't do anything a conventional computer can't also do. So there's still a step that needs to be done. Now, we understand very well what needs to be done, and simply put, these machines need to be scaled up. They need to become much bigger and more powerful. And this is something, for example, Universal Quantum solely focuses on. We are truly passionate about moving quantum computing from being a nice proof of concept to actually being able to change humanity on a pretty profound level once these machines get to the right scale. Now, a number that people often, or a quantity that people often latch onto is the number of qubits. So when you think about a conventional computer, you have these bits. There can be ones or zeros. In a quantum computer, you have quantum bits or qubits. And they can also be 1 or 0. But because we're talking quantum here, they can be 1 and 0 at the same time. So one of these strange effects that quantum computers make use of. Now, we need more qubits. And eventually, we ought to get to millions of qubits. Currently, state-of-the-art machines, we're talking tens of qubits. So there's clearly a big gap from where we are at the moment to where we need to get to. And this scaling challenge, one of the biggest challenges in our sector, I would say, that is really something that Universal Quantum focuses on. This is one of the reasons why we're so happy to have received this contract very recently. It's not actually about the 70 million, it's about this particular government realizing that we ought to get to millions of qubits eventually. So they were specifically looking for someone to do that scaling work, and chose us as being the entity to do that. So that is really the critical challenge quantum computing needs to get a handle on. We need to significantly increase the qubit numbers as soon as possible. Mm.
When we're speaking about this evolution and what the future could look like, if you can paint us a scenario of quantum computing and robotics advanced in 2030, as you spoke about earlier on, how would that change our lives fundamentally, and how would we see that?
So,
Not an easy question.
I believe fundamentally this data will change everything.
Yeah.
We're seeing. Like in this venue we see there's a lot of data collection as well.
Yeah.
And we are carrying our cell phone. Mm-hmm. Like now, like nowadays when you do e-commerce, all those type of things, you still have human involved in this process. Even though when you do a search, it can predict like what do you really want to buy and when you want to buy. And with that prediction, it makes your life easier or lazier. But now after you put the order there, you still see there's a people involved on this logistical process. And I would say in the future, like probably one day, when you think of something, the thing will show up very quickly. Well, maybe it'll show up before you think of it. So, that's it's very, very much like achievable, and pretty much on the horizon as well.
If you want to comment as well, I mean, I obviously get very excited about this sort of quantum future, so to speak, and what that can do for humanity. And I think, so I'm personally very passionate about drug discovery, and it's again very well understood that quantum computers will be able to significantly move the needle in that space. So really help develop drugs we can only dream of today. So I think that's one area. But if you look at this really being this enabling technology, all we're doing really is giving people a computational resource, a computational tool to do amazing things with, be they material science, understanding climate change better, in the financial services, optimizing portfolios, if you're that way inclined. There's just a broad range of applications that will really change the world we live in today. And I think one of the other important things to note is that we don't fully understand all of the applications of quantum computing yet, and I find that hugely exciting. Similarly, if you go back to the start of conventional computing, people were very naive in what we could potentially do with that technology. And I think we're at a similar stage with quantum computing in terms of understanding what that technology will actually eventually be able to do for all of us. And I find that as a bit of a scientist as well, hugely exciting.
Yeah.
We already know a lot, exciting enough, but there's so much more to uncover.
I mean, you've both spoken about the positives and the future and the good things that could come from quantum computing and robotics. On the other side, there are always going to be challenges with evolving technology. I'd like to start with you, Sebastian. What are those challenges going to be when it comes to quantum computing of the future, and what things do you have, as scenarios do you have to plan for now in that area?
Are you talking about threats?
Threats and challenges, yes.
Yeah, I think a huge threat with quantum computing, right off the bat, is on the security side. So it's, we know that quantum computers will be very good at breaking, conventional encryption technology, the way most of our bank details are stored, etc. Quantum computers naturally like to factor large numbers, and that's one of the underlying principles of our encryption technology used today. So there's a huge security threat on that side, and people are doing a lot of work to find ways to protect our information from that threat. But I think that also comes back to the point of why governments are getting involved. They really recognize that if there is a state actor who has that sort of capability in-house, and they may not, that can really shift the balance on a geopolitical side. So like with any new major technology, there are significant threats, and we need to manage those. But I think we're on a good way, on a good route to doing that. But again, because we don't even understand all of the applications yet, it's really important to stay close to it, bring it close to your home, so to speak, and join that development phase to make sure you really stay on top of what's happening in that sector.
Haoyuan, I'd pose the same question to you when it came to data and robotics as well. What challenges are we said to be facing in the short and medium term, and how are those being dealt with?
So from the short-term perspective, I think the lack of the talent, as well as the infrastructure, many infrastructure related is not modernized. So essentially, these two things, from my perspective, is a bottleneck of the faster growth of this field to bring the more value to the world in a more effective way. I would say that's a short term. But from the long-term perspective, I think it's similar to the thrice perspective. You have data security, you have moral issues, and when you have collected all the data at different places, lots of those data are very sensitive data. How do you make sure the data is not being leaked or properly managed, being protected. I would say that's a easy part. It's not really easy, but it's still I say the impact is not the most significant part. But if you look at the other side, if one day, if this data technology can predict what you want to do, where you want to go, what you want to buy, essentially, the question becomes whether people should replicate your thinking. So that become a different question. It's a more moral question, right? So when robotics really, really everywhere, when the WALL-E in the movie is really implemented, so there's lots of things need to be balanced out. So
How is that going to happen?
I'm sorry?
How is that balancing out going to happen of those challenges that you spoke about, or what do you think should be done?
I guess we have to face the issue when the issue comes. We cannot really solve it all at once or at the beginning. Like anything become critical, important at the time, I trust that people can solve it in the end of the day. There may be bumpers here and there, but it should be solvable in the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
When Haoyuan speaks about people, you spoke about quantum computing and the importance of discoveries that are going to be made, like drugs as well. What's the role of people, even as there is that technological advancement in that space?
Yeah, sure. And I do want to comment on just the challenges part as well. I think I only gave you the threats and not just the challenges, which may also be interesting for the audience, if I may, before I get onto the people aspect as well. So, I mean, like you've mentioned as well, the talent side is a significant issue for sure. Not that many people understand or even begin to understand quantum and quantum computing. So that is a significant challenge, training of people, but also across the different areas. So if we look at, we build quantum computers. That doesn't just mean we need quantum experts. It means we need software experts, hardware engineers, chip level engineers, electronic engineers, and they all need to start getting an appreciation for these quantum machines. So we're really training them to be quantum software engineers, quantum electronic engineers, and so on. So there's a huge training aspect that we have to do internally as well, because these people don't just, run around en masse that we can hire. And I think that's another thing we're seeing with working with governments as well, where we're being asked to not just build a quantum computer and then throw it over the border and say, here you go. Yeah. It's really about building a hub in that particular area that's, where we can build up local talent, we can train local talent, we can create an ecosystem of supply chain and so on around this technology to get quantum, as far into that ecosystem as possible. Now on the people side, I mean, I think I covered it on, via the challenger side as well. The people aspect is huge from a training side, taking people on this journey. It's a long-term project we're talking about here. We won't reach this million qubit scale in the next 1 or 2 years. This is hopefully this decade. This sort of 10-year time scale. So you have to take people on that mission. You have to in a way, take them on this journey of what quantum will at some point deliver, with the threats and the opportunities and so on. So I think there's a huge human part to this as well.
One of the questions when we were setting up this discussion was about how today's robotics help humanities. I know that's not as technical as we've been talking about, but I want us to take a look at that. I'll start with you when it comes to robotics, and then quantum computing. You have touched on it now and for the future, but we'll just expand on that.
So, in many ways, in the end of the day, right? So as a society, we produce lots of goods and to be consumed. So of course, with like robotics, it makes this like more things is being produced. So bring the cost down, and more flourish of the goods for people to leverage, to use. So then, as example, nowadays at some hotel, when you order something, like it's being delivered by a small robotics machine, right? It's really fun, actually. So previously has done by human people. And there's so many examples like this. And with this robotics, relieve people from doing this type of work, and people can focus more on other areas. like Sebastian mentioned, quantum computing, like our space in data space, we all lack of talent. And I think with this, as people, we can focus more on the education and learn more and do more in these areas where lacking the talent.
Yeah, I think I touched on it already. I think this just being an enabling technology, be that in robotics, where obviously amazing things are happening in that space, and we support and help our life in many ways. Like I said before, I'd pick your favorite and sector or application area where you think there will be meaningful impact in the future. Quantum computing will most likely have an impact in that area. Hopefully, one day you don't even need to think about quantum computing too much. It's a resource you access via the cloud, and it just solves a particular computational problem for you. That's really the sort of model that I would like to see in the future. But the sort of indirect outcome from that enabling technology will be completely new drugs, like I said, that we can't really think about today. Drugs that may help cure Alzheimer, applications in curing cancer, those sort of areas, developing new materials where we can have, for example, high temperature superconductors can have a huge impact on on emissions. Optimize fertilizer production. It's actually a significant portion of our energy usage at the moment globally comes from fertilizer production. So if you can optimize that, again, that has a big impact on climate. So the list is pretty long. Like I said, pick your favorite of where you find yourself in a particular sector, and there's something to do there. What's maybe important to note at this stage is that, like I said before as well, we're still uncovering those applications. The key thing right now is engage with the sector, with companies like ours, and there's other companies out there as well, that would be very happy to work with you on helping you understand and helping us understand what this technology can really do for you. And I think that engagement is absolutely key for the stage that this technology is at the moment.
Let's stay with that point. How do governments and companies now prepare for the future that you've spoken about? I know that the talent was something that you both spoke about, and perhaps the lack of talent. So people now in companies and governments, what do they need to be thinking about when they're thinking about the future of quantum computing and robotics and that sector now?
Yeah, you need to get quantum ready. That's how I would describe that, and that will mean different things depending, where you work. If it's a government entity, is a larger corporation. We're seeing significant movement across the board already, where companies are starting to onboard some quantum talent to create their own in-house quantum resource, just to be able to understand what's going on, speak the same language with a quantum company. You get big companies partnering with startups like ours and others to embark on this sort of longer term journey, and learning together and getting everyone ready so that when these machines are there, you know how to use them. The big problem in quantum computing is that it's so difficult to understand how this technology works, how to program these machines, how to frame the problem that you will actually throw at this quantum computer, that you need years on that journey to get quantum ready, so that when we have the machines there, you know what to do with them. That is the absolute key thing. So I'd urge you not to wait until these machines are there and be like, oh, okay, then I just go and use them for my, revolutionary nice application. That is unlikely how it will work out. Engage now and get ready for when these machines are really there.
I think many governments and companies are already doing lots of good things in the space we're in, like robotics, the data, etc. So essentially, they can have policy to reduce the cost of doing business or innovate in this area. They can invest in money in this area as well. And for the company themselves, as long as you have a path to a product to produce value to people, you can, either from the venture side, you can raise money, and to further advance the area in a faster way. So there's various governments that already invest a lot in these areas.
When we're speaking about robotics and computing, someone has said that the challenge with robotics and programming, artificial intelligence and the like, is that at some point there's a barrier to what can be learned, and at the end of the day, it's people inputting information, so the flaws and challenges that people have may translate there. Is that an accurate reflection of the challenges when it comes to robotics and programming?
So I would say different people may have different views from this perspective. I mean, I'm very optimistic. So, so because of that, I feel as long as the field is continuously to advance, so I don't see, like most of the things will be resolved one by one. Actually, I don't see any boundary from that perspective. All those challenges we see today probably will be crossed sooner or later down the road with a more powerful, like compute side, like quantum computing, with a more advanced infrastructure on the data side, with better algorithm, with more people and the resources being put in this field. I don't see any issue is not solvable in the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like us to step away from the technical for a moment. Haoyuan spoke earlier on about how you're at these hotels or restaurants and these robot computers come and it takes people away from kind of menial or low-level entry work into other focuses. One of the challenges with advancements is that there's a concern that the digital divide between developed nations and developing nations is going to grow even wider with these advancements, and countries where education is not easily accessible are going to get further left behind. If we're speaking about the future of humanity, are people going to get left behind in developing nations with these advancements?
Yeah, I think it's a huge worry. We worry about this as well. The sort of scenario where this glorious grand quantum computer, sits in our quantum data center, and just having this sort of huge conglomerates buy all the time up on those machines and do whatever they see fit with that technology. That is a risk actually, and that's a worry from our side. I think the way, personally, and the way we see that internally is that we're going to set up a quantum computing foundation that will reserve time on these machines and make that available not on a money basis in terms of who can pay the most will get access, but there will be a different model of providing access to that technology. But I think the education side that you mentioned is hugely important as well, because like I said before, there's no point in me just giving quantum computing time to someone if you don't know how to use it. And I think that's where, especially in the developing countries, a lot of work still needs to be done to help people understand quantum and obviously other areas as well, to get ready and learn how to use that technology. I do not have an answer to that yet today, but it's a huge challenge that has to be addressed. Okay. Absolutely. I
have a slightly different view, so okay. I'm not worried at all.
Okay.
So from the if we look at the human race, like evolvement along the way, like in early stage, it's still recent, not that early. So we hunt. We don't farm. Like there's nothing called farming. We go hunt, and we eat raw. There's no raw meat. Like we still live our world, right? So, and then along the way, with the technology, whatever technology advancement, very, very few people hunt today. Like, we're all the hunters. So the society, the whole world just keep evolving, and through various ways, like education, Sebastian mentioned, which is hugely important. So if the world evolved from a hunting world to where we are today, so we can continue to evolve, and it will be resolved. So that's so I'm not worried at all. So yeah.
Okay. And your final thoughts about augmenting humanity through robotics and quantum computing as we wrap up our session? No pressure.
I mean, I'm positive, so I'm very eager to see what will come in the future, and more interesting things will come, and we'll benefit from that. And there'll be challenge as well, and people will resolve it. So that's my view.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's difficult to predict the future, and I think it's just going to be a very exciting ride, most certainly for us in quantum computing. Providing this revolutionary resource. But in the end of the day, what people then do with that, it is to some extent up to them and for them to write the future, so to speak.
Dr. Sebastian Weidt, the co-founder and CEO of Universal Quantum, and Haoyuan Li, the chairman and CEO of Alluxio. Thanks so much for your time and insight today. I feel like I've learned so much. I hope our audience gleaned enough insights from that. And a round of applause, please, for them as we wrap up the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.